That's just not some random college campus. You know what that is right there? That's Trump Tower. That is Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue in New York City. Palestinian protesters occupied it. Some of them got arrested. We will have Mike Baker, former FBI agent, great guy. Mike Baker is going to spend some time with us talking about that and also the Putin story a little bit later in the show. In the meantime, New York politics is dominated by incompetent, fraudulent Democrats for years, always has been since Mayor Giuliani. Mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani is looking to become the next screaming Dem to leave his mark on the city that never sleeps. Listen to this guy. He wants to be the mayor. Listen to how this man who's running for public office addressed Tom Homan, of all people. I mean, what kind of lunatic is that? This guy wants to be mayor of New York City, screaming at Tom Homan. By the way, what happened to, your own mayor of New York who says, Eric Adams, who says, yeah, you know what, you're right. Immigration was a problem. It's a terrible idea. You want that nut job, that lunatic as the mayor of New York? Let me see. De Blasio, Eric Adams. It's been just a disaster for New York City. I cannot believe I spent 30 years in that city. Giuliani left. The place has gone right to S. Jasmine Crockett is good for, I don't know, maybe one or two horrible ideas every single week. Well, here's her very latest.
In my opinion, if we're shut down, you can't be fired. And what does that mean? It does mean that people will not be paid, but it does mean that they will get their back pay. So hopefully we can stop some of the bleeding. We just saw that the Department of Education laid off 50% of their workforce. So I don't really understand why anybody would say, oh, we got to take the high road. We got to listen. He is decimating the federal government. And you're talking about whether or not we're going to keep the doors open. He literally is shutting down departments anyway.
All right, Jasmine Crockett. Let me teach you a little story here. They can get fired, whether they're at work or not. You can get fired when you're home. So no, shutting the government down does not prohibit Elon Musk and Doge from firing the massive amount of bloat, waste, fraud, and abuse that's going on across the federal government, across the whole $7 trillion that we spend every year. Yes, you can get fired, and there's no back pay if they find out you've been not working, no show, working from home and not working. Doesn't matter if the government is open or shut. You're not getting back pay. You're getting gone. And by the way, Democrats, speaking of getting gone, you're going to keep getting gone if Jazz Crockett is the best you can come up with as a U.S. Congresswoman from the great state of Texas. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, he calls himself, which I don't really like at all. I don't like him that much either. Absolutely crushed, however, Rosie O'Donnell when O'Leary was on CNN. And he did it for thinking anyone gives a damn about Rosie O'Donnell's big move out of this brand new, beautiful America.
Who gives a
thank you
beep about Rosie O'Donnell and where she wants to go? I don't care what celebrities think about politicians or who they want to vote for. I think the last election proved it doesn't matter who you are.
You are a celebrity opinion on politics.
Who cares what I think in terms of my picking a politician or who I vote for? You make your own decision. If she wants to move to Phnom Penh, move to Phnom Penh. She wants to go to Ireland, great. It's a better passport. You get an EU passport, not the British one. It's better. But who gives a
well, Kevin, obviously
Just make a deal to keep Rosie O'Donnell in Ireland. I think that's where she's hanging out. Please, just stay there, Rosie. No one wants you back. I mean, remember, she was on The View for a while, too. I'm not sure, whatever. She's welcome to leave. And I think I've offered some of these celebrities who said they would leave the country if Donald Trump was elected the first time and the second time, I've offered to pay their airline tickets one way. J.D. Vance has been, sporting some very festive socks as St. Paddy's Day approaches. His latest outfit was tied together with green shamrock socks. That's right, something that Trump couldn't help but noticing during a meeting with the Irish Prime Minister today. Listen.
By the way, I have to speak of inflation. I love these socks. What's with these socks?
It's an honor of the
I'm trying to stay focused, but I'm very impressed with the VP's.
Yeah, those are cool. Those are cool. Trump loved them. It's pretty fun. Can you get the sky cam out? I don't do socks. I live in Florida. You got the sky cam there? Sockless. I don't think I wear white socks with dress shoes anyway, but call me crazy. Gavin Newsom's political rebrand is underway. He's making headlines for breaking away from the rest of his Dems on his little podcast lately. He's actually been making some sense lately, but I think there's an ulterior motive. This is where I want to slow things down just a bit and give you all a warning. If Gavin Newsom is making sense, something is obviously up. Something's wrong. There's something going on that we don't really understand. He doesn't actually believe anything he's saying. He's simply trying to come off as less radical to put some wind under his wings when the time comes to launch his inevitable 2028 presidential bid. With that said, listen to Newsom's revised take. Revised. He seems to be flip-flopping on everything to the conservative, to more conservative bend on all these issues. But listen to his revised take on America's vote counting process.
Why does it take so many months or days to count the ballots in California? A month.
Legit.
India, 1 day to count 640 million votes. Germany, 8 hours to count 50 million votes.
Yep.
Argentina, 6 hours to count 27 million votes. California, 4 weeks to count 60 million votes.
It's ridiculous.
Why?
It's ridiculous. It's because it's, and by the way, we've been having this conversation enough. And it's first of all, we believe that every vote counts. So we want to make sure every vote is counted because of the provisional ballots, the fact we do all mail-in ballots, the fact that we have such huge investments in making sure that we increase that outreach. We want to make sure, again, every vote counts. But you're right. The time,
I'm right about something?
Right, no, the right, absolutely. The right is right, and you are right to criticize the extended period.
Let me take it a little step further. Newsom decides he's going to do this podcast. I was like, oh, maybe he's coming around. He's being a little bit more of a centrist. I don't think so. I think what he's doing, he's bringing on some of the more, I would say, vocal, strong conservative voices. Remember, his first show ever was Charlie Kirk. Our good friend Charlie Kirk was his first show ever. Very MAGA, very young, TPUSA, very RAV. And then he had Steve Bannon on yesterday, really the architect of the pro-populist movement, America First movement, brings him on yesterday. And today, that guy, Michael Savage, I think he's a conservative radio host, if I'm not mistaken. But bringing these people on, I don't think it's because Newsom is becoming more centrist. I think he's taking some of the best and strongest voices and using them as sparring partners. Like if you're Mike Tyson, you go in the ring and you got a big fight coming up, 2028 election, you have a good sparring partner, someone who's going to give you some good body blows or maybe hit you a little bit. Maybe you have to learn how to dance around, and maybe he's learning how to dance around Republicans, conservative voices, America First folks in 2028 by doing it now, by bringing on Charlie Kirk, by bringing on Steve Bannon, by bringing on Savage as well. Maybe it's a smart strategy, but why are we doing it? I'm not sure we should be going on his podcast. I think we'll let him F around and find out in 2028. What do you say? I'd like to bring you the latest badass clip of the day featuring Tom Homan, our no-nonsense border czar. Remember that mayor candidate wanting to get at Tom Homan? I'm pretty glad. I'm sure he's glad those cops weren't letting him get to Tom Homan. But watch Tom Homan. Watch him casually walk to the podium, eating an apple, big apple. Get it? There's a metaphor there. Before absolutely obliterating Kathy Hochul. Again, eat that apple and then go rip Kathy Hochul a new one. This may be one of the most focused, least distracted men in America minding his own business, drowning out all that liberal noise, getting the job done. Of course, what happened after Homan put the apple down is really worth watching. So here's a clip of the border czar eviscerating one of the worst politicians this country has to offer.
Let's talk about your governor. Your governor who stayed on national TV after NYPD were assaulted by illegal alien gang members. You had a woman burned alive by illegal alien subway. Your governor stands on national TV. Well, I think criminal aliens should be deported. What's one of the first things she do? She goes down to New York City and tries to fire the mayor who wants to help me find public safety threats. Let me give a shout out to Mayor Adams. Like him or love him, I called him up for 2 years by not doing enough. As a career cop, he wasn't doing enough. But when I sat down with him back in November, he came to the table, he wanted to help.
Yeah, it's shocking that Kathy Hochul is still the governor of New York. I mean, New York's really got to get your act together. Got to get your act together. Cuomo wasn't bad enough. You replace him, Cuomo, with a far more leftist. Homan's right. And by the way, we're lucky to have Homan in that position. Dana Bash, CNN's Dana Bash. Well, she's lost her mind, apparently. She thinks she's so much more important than she actually is. And her inflated sense of self-worth led her to call out Elon Musk and Steve Bannon in one sentence.
I'm not sure that saying that Steve Bannon calls balls and strikes is the right way.
I think at the risk of Elon Musk tweeting about me, because apparently he likes when I say the word balls on TV, I will say that balls and strikes, when you're talking about Steve Bannon, when he calls balls and strikes, he calls strikes balls and balls strikes. I mean, that's what he does. He says the opposite of what is happening, particularly when you're talking about, I don't know, the 2020 election. So let's just be clear on that. Having said that, we are so siloed in how we consume information that the fact that Gavin Newsom is so aggressively going, he's not just going over the line, he's going like to the other side of the spectrum in order to make a point. That's what he's doing.
I mean, she seems to like to say balls a lot. I don't know, she's talking about balls and strikes. Remember when she couldn't say that? Remember that kid that was helping Doja and he named himself Big Balls, and Dana Bash couldn't stop saying his name. Dana, what's going on, CNN? You all right? Everything okay? Balls and strikes, Dana Bash. By the way, I'm going to ask Steve Bannon what he thinks about that little quote by Dana Bash later in the hour. You got to stick around. All right, when we come back, we have the great senator from Utah, Mike Lee. He's going to weigh in on all the things that are going on in Moscow right now and what we should be expecting going forward. Can we trust Putin? Can we trust Putin? Mike Lee comes up next after the break. we go, let's bring in Senator Mike Lee, the great senator, Republican senator, by the way, libertarian senator, friend of mine from Utah. Senator, Vladimir Putin says he is agreeing in essence to some sort of peace deal that Steve Witkoff, as a representative of the United States, and Donald Trump has negotiated. Let's roll the soundbite, folks. Let's hear what he just said.
We agree with the propositions to stop hostilities, but we proceed from the fact that such ceasefire should be such that would lead to a permanent peace.
So, Senator, what do you think? Do you trust him? I mean, he says he agrees that the hostilities should cease, but let's make sure it's actually happening. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, look, the name of the game is always trust but verify. I don't know that there are many people in the world who do or should trust Vladimir Putin. That said, I don't think he's going to hint at the possibility of entering into a ceasefire and agree to a ceasefire and then pretend it never existed. Now, he said that he has that he wants concessions, or at least hinted to that effect, and some terms that may lead to a longer peace. The U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff is expected to go over to Moscow to negotiate with Russian leadership. We'll see what that brings. So I don't know where this goes. I wouldn't say that we can just trust Vladimir Putin. I don't think anybody would say that. Nonetheless, it appears that he's showing signs of wanting peace, and I'm just glad we're heading in this direction. Ever since that fateful meeting a couple of weeks ago between President Trump, Vice President Vance, and President Zelensky, where they sent Zelensky back on his way, to sort of wait for him to change his attitude. It seems like the timeout has served him and the world well, and Mr. Zelensky's ready to come back to work toward a negotiated peace. This is a good thing. It's about 3 years overdue. We should have been doing this all along. And hats off to President Trump for making it happen.
You know, if folks don't know, Senator Lee has been on the forefront of saying no more aid to, certainly not this type of aid to Ukraine from the very, very beginning. And then the reason why I point that out, folks, is because Trump will tell us that we've sent $300 billion. I think Congress knows about $180 billion. And here's the problem, Senator. Zelensky knows of only $75 billion that he knows of yet. There's anywhere between $125 and $225 billion of American taxpayer money that seems to be missing. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so first of all, when we're dealing with this sheer volume of money, money that is estimated, in the hundreds of billions of dollars, Zelensky cites a much smaller number that might just reflect aid that directly came to Ukraine rather than being funneled through some other entity on the outside. I don't know quite how to explain for the discrepancy, but I will say this: when you're dealing with numbers that large, and you're dealing with a country like Ukraine that has not had exactly a clean track record when it comes to things like money laundering and official corruption, you have to assume, in fact, you can operate with a sure certainty that a lot of this has gone missing and that it's been, corruptly acquired by some people. I don't know that explains for the entire discrepancy. Some of that's probably accounting methods, but it's odd. And what's even more odd is that notwithstanding the fact that we have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on this war, a war that is not ours to fight, there has never, up until this moment, up until President Trump took office, we haven't had a commander-in-chief ready, willing, able, interested in bringing about a peace. President Biden, with, sadly, the bipartisan support for the Congress over the last 3 years, has been willing to just dump aid, a lot of money and a lot of weapons into this conflict without ever pushing for peace. So better late than never.
What do you think? What's the motive? I'm trying to figure out. The only thing I can possibly think of is, Ukraine is well known as one of the money laundering centers of Eastern Europe. I mean, did the Democrats and Biden by de facto use Ukraine also to launder money to be sent back to their districts, to their election coffers, you think?
I don't know. I don't know where all of it went. There is a simpler explanation, which is also very troubling, which is that a lot of things happen under the auspices of facilitating in one way or another the military-industrial complex. In fact, Eric, there were times when this was so bad that was overtly an argument used to convince senators and representatives to vote for some of these bloated aid packages. by saying, yeah, it's a lot of money. And then they'd start to express it first in terms of a percentage of our gross national product. That is a red flag. Anytime someone starts doing that, it's a red flag that there's way too much money involved. Right. But the other argument that they would say, oh, don't worry, this is going to create jobs in the United States. That's a real problem.
Yeah, keep that war going so we can fund it and create a few jobs back in Connecticut, in Chris Murphy's district in Connecticut. Gotcha. Way to go, Democrats.
And a few rich people made even richer by this.
Right. Senator, interesting timing on this, that Trump is meeting with NATO and the head of NATO here in the White House in D.C. today, while Witkoff is talking to Putin about ending a war. What are your thoughts? NATO, Ukraine, I think you and I agree that NATO should. First of all, I don't even think we should be in NATO, but if there is a NATO and we're going to be a big part of it, you keep Ukraine out so we don't spend another $500 billion protecting them.
Yeah, first of all, I believe the North Atlantic Treaty has served its purpose. And we have provided Europe's security umbrella for long enough. It has cost Americans dearly. It has allowed our European allies in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization to spend money doing other things, including advancing their march toward European-style socialism, because they don't have to spend as much money on their own defense because we pick it up. And so this is a very good deal for Europe, a very good deal for the promotion of socialism. To a degree, it's a good deal for the U.S. military-industrial complex, but not in a way that is as focused on protecting American national security as it should be. So we should get out. But between now and whenever we do get out, if the question is whether we should add Ukraine to NATO, heavens no. You don't ensure a house on fire, and you don't admit a country that is currently at war with an adversary with a massive arsenal. Some would say the world's largest arsenal of nuclear weapons. That's a terrible idea. Ukraine doesn't have any of the hallmark characteristics that one needs to have in order to be even considered for NATO admission.
Just like they don't insure people with pre-existing conditions, NATO shouldn't be insuring Ukraine with quite a few pre-existing conditions. Senator Mike Lee, appreciate your time. Always good. Would love to see this guy in the administration, some upper echelon of the administration. Hurry up, Senator, will you please? Please hurry up.
Hey, I've got the job I want. I'm having a great time in the U.S. Senate and grateful for the opportunity.
And you are doing a bang-up job. Appreciate it. Senator Mike Lee, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we will be right back. Mad Dog, can you get on Voice of God for me? Can you get in here, Mad Dog? Press the right button, Mad Dog.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what? You know that is the home of the Chicago Cubs. You know where I grew up, Mad Dog?
Did you grow up there?
Go. I used to ride my bicycle. We were very poor. I used to ride my bicycle from one of the poor suburbs of Chicago to Wrigley Field. And in the left field, there's a little area where the trucks came in and out, food trucks, etc., groundkeepers trucks, and there's a fence, and we used to climb over the fence and sneak into Wrigley Field and watch Cubs games for free. And then we go back out and wait for a home run ball to go over the left field fence on Waverly or Ashland, one of those two streets. Anyway, that brings a tear to my heart. Well done, Mad Dog. Well done. Thank you for that.
You got it.
All right, folks, it's a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of optimism about the future, but the reality is there's a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The truth is that the forces that are responsible for breaking our healthcare system aren't going to go away. The challenges are simply facing our system faces won't just disappear overnight. Now more than ever, you need to be prepared. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications in guidebooks to assist in the proper use of those medications, from the flu to strep throat, from COVID to the bird flu, from a trip to the beach to a trip overseas. The Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to twc.health/voice today and order. That's TWC health/voice, twc.health/voice, and use the promo code VOICE and save 10%. All righty, where's our sky cam? Where's the sky cam? Love the sky cam, Mad Dog. Houston, we have a problem. Democrats have declared war through the judicial system. The judges, we need to address the situation with these activist judges who seem to be running this country. The activist judges are all over the place, and we need to fix it, and quickly. For 4 years, Donald Trump and his close MAGA associates, Rudy Giuliani, Peter Navarro, they were victims of blatant leftist warfare. We watched as they did everything in their legislative power to not only try to prevent another Trump presidency, but to also try to take away President Trump's wealth and even his freedom. And the theory is, if they can do it to him, a billionaire, they could do it to us. Well, that's over for now. But we knew that they wouldn't go quietly into the night. We knew that. For years, I've said again and again and again that every single vote matters. Every single election matters. Every election has consequences. We're seeing the fruits of their labor now. Obama-appointed judges, Biden-appointed judges, which, let's face it, are really also Obama-appointed judges. All of them. All the judges really stem from the New World Order, the Soros gang. Those bought and owned by the deep state. And now we know deep state is everywhere. Just ask Mike Pence or watch the interview we did with him last Friday. The lawfare, it's not over. It's like a game of cat and mouse with everything that President Trump and Doge and Elon Musk are trying to do and trying to accomplish day in and day out. A judge blocks the deportation of illegal migrants. What's wrong with deporting illegals? Another judge blocks the deportation of a terrorist supporter, an instigator. Another judge insists on doxing Doge employees. I know they were being far too quiet in the days surrounding in and around the inauguration. I knew it was the calm before the storm. And folks, the storm is now. It's storming. The deep state, under the guise of the law and complete and utter overreach, is doing everything in their Soros-backed power to stop every single MAGA move and Trump. These aren't just your run-of-the-mill judges, by the way. These are activist judges meant to harm and stand in the way of every aspect of President Trump's agenda, the MAGA agenda. But it's not just corruption. No, it's also sheer stupidity. Exhibit A, and I'm reading, Biden-appointed judge demands Pete Hegseth retract social media post about trans policy, and that's in the Daily Caller. At the hearing yesterday in the lawsuit challenging the ban on transgender people in the military, federal judge Anna Reyes ordered Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to retract a post about disqualifying transgender troops from service. This same Biden-appointed judge also said the idea of two sexes is not biologically correct. Really now? Can't even ask a Supreme Court justice who wants to be one what a woman is. Yet another liberal who doesn't know what a woman is.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
The meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Supreme Court judge can't figure out what a woman is. Yeah, that woman, I know you're a woman, Ketanji. I know it. I bet a lot of money on it. She sits on the Supreme Court, folks. Scary stuff, but I digress. Or Biden-appointed judge demands Pete had to retract social media posts. So in more sheer stupidity, this Biden-appointed judge, federal judge, by the way, Reyes, also questioned the government's attorneys about whether she should be required to defer to the judgment of Pete Hegseth. Reyes pointed out that Hegseth has not been in his role as defense secretary very long. She said she believed Hegseth had no military experience, but then corrected herself and said something about having received an early deployment to do a TV show, whatever that means. And she's wrong, by the way. Reyes suggested that instead, she should defer to an opinion expressed by the former chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff years ago, emphasizing he had a stellar military record. Talk about a constitutional crisis. It's one thing to have a shadowy web of Soros-owned judges percolating through the American judicial system. Very dangerous. Like cancer running through your bloodstream. This is a constitutional crisis all on its own, but this is a different kind of crisis, having a judge who thinks she can disregard the proper exercise of executive authority by Trump simply because she believes the cabinet member isn't sufficiently qualified. Was Lloyd Austin qualified? Under her terms, probably, but Lloyd Austin is the guy who had a severe medical issue, didn't tell anyone, went to the emergency room, was there overnight, 24 hours, and told his subordinate, shh, don't tell anyone. I know I'm the cabinet secretary for the Defense Department, but don't tell anyone. How much risk was America in for those 24 hours? What if they couldn't get in touch with him? That's qualified? Got it. There was an entire hearing proceeding to establish that lady, judge. A tweet by lawyer Kurt Schlichter says it all. Quoting Schlichter, for you non-lawyers, this is literally insane. This never happens. And when I say never, I mean never. I've been in front of stupid federal judges. I've been in front of wrong federal judges, but this is a whole new level. Well, there's more to be done to fix what America has broken in our judicial system than ever can be fixed in 4 years, because they're kind of appointed for life-ish. Although President Trump's current breakneck speed, never say never. Something needs to be done, though, folks, and it needs to be done right away. This week alone, activist judges have, and I'll read a few of these, ordered the release of illegal Venezuelan migrants back into America. A judge did that. Told the president, the United States president, he can't stop the George Soros-funded law firm Perkins Coie from entering government buildings. Let's just refer to the Constitution. You know, that pesky little thing that Democrats have come to hate and will do anything in their power to work around, that thing. So what exactly are the powers of the president given to him by the Constitution of these United States? Oh, that's right. Article 2, Constitution states that the executive power shall be vested in the president. No court may take or overrule that. No court may define or limit the scope of the duties of an official within the executive office of the president. Not just the president, the people he appoints. So what in God's name is going on here? Why have we no impeachments been started on these judges? We, the people, elected Donald Trump as president. We didn't elect these activist liberal Soros or Biden-owned judges because the activists in black robes identify as judges, but they're just Democrat operatives. And they're going for broke right now. They hand out injunctions like candy, make it rain, instead of doing what it was intended to do. Only extraordinary judges, judicial remedies to be used in extraordinary circumstances, judicial norms, out the window. Legal precedent also out the window. Sanity, well, we know that went out the window with the Trump derangement syndrome in Trump 1.0. Here we are. Judge orders Doge and Elon Musk to turn over documents, answer written questions, according to Politico. Yep, yesterday, Judge Tanya Chutkan, remember her, granted a request by Democrats to uncover the identities of Doge personnel, doxing, and also the parameters of Doge's and Musk's authority. So now activist federal judges can assist the woke mob and order Doge employees to be doxed. They're already burning Tesla dealerships. What do you think they're going to do to these people whose identities are exposed to these radical lunatic leftists? You see what they're doing in Trump Tower as we speak. Folks, Democrats have once again declared war through the judicial system. It's official. War's on. Game on, as they say. But it isn't just a system of corrupt judges left behind. We don't even have the time in an entire show or a week of entire shows to dive into the shadowy web of deep state corruption, NGOs, fatty overspending, overpaid federal agencies, groups. These judges, just the judges alone are threatening this country's progress in the right direction. If I hear those words, judge blocks Trump again, it's only been 50 days or so. How many judges, how many blocks of Trump policy so far? Why is it never judge blocks America-hating Ilhan Omar from remaining in Congress, or judge blocks AOC from teaching illegals how to continue breaking the law by remaining in this country? Or how about judge blocks constitutional members from stealing American taxpayers' money? Why aren't the blocks ever to benefit the American people? I think we know the answer to that one. Trump derangement syndrome. And boy, it's one hell of a disease. When we come back, we have Mike Baker, former FBI, who's going to take us through all things going on downtown New York and all things going on in Moscow. When we come back, 2.5 minutes. So this is all cool. You know, I don't know what these Earth Cam pictures are going to be, or these camera shots that are going to be in these bump shots. It's called a bump shot because you bump in and out of segments. TV lingo. I don't know what generally don't know what they're going to be. Bristol, Tennessee. I assume that's a NASCAR Bristol Speedway, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Mad Dog, am I right?
You are right.
I am right. Okay. I hope that was on Voice of God. See, he can talk to me. Sometimes I'm screwing something up. And then he can also talk to you too and me. Mad Dog, can you do Voice of God for all of us? Say
this is the voice of God.
And one time, it's a funny story. I asked them to put this into the show, The Voice of God, where I can talk to the control room. They can talk to me, but I wanted people on TV to hear it as well. Now, traditionally, Voice of God is a speaker in the studio, and you can hear it like a voice of God. It just sounds like it. That's why they call it that, not to be disrespectful. But my guys are really great tech people, and they're really young, and this is old school. And so they put in Voice of God, and I say, Mad Dog, and the first thing he said was, go to break. And I was like, no, you're not supposed to sound like God, or what you think God sounds like. Just Voice of God. Anyway. I had to tell you a story. All right, folks, while we may have won this election, the fight to restore a great nation, it's only beginning. Now's the time to take stand. And Patriot Mobile is leading the charge as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising or any quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It is, and they do. It's a call to action to defend our rights and our freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. If you have a cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile, period. With a coverage guarantee, by the way. But the difference is every dollar you spend supports the First and a Second Amendments, sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is really easy. You can keep your own phone number. You can keep your own phone or upgrade. Their 100% US-based customer support team will help you find the perfect plan right now. Go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code RAV. Switch to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every single call and text you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. All right. My next guest, good friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, former CIA covert operative and CEO of the global intelligence and security firm Portman Square Group. He also hosts an extremely popular podcast, folks. If you don't watch or listen to it, you need to. It's called President's Daily Brief. Around here, we call it PDB, not Patrick Bet David, the President's Daily Brief. Happy to have Mike Baker here. Mike, good to have you, my friend. We go way back. We go a long time back, and your success, it's awesome and well earned. Mike, if I may, can you weigh in on, should we trust Vladimir Putin saying, in essence, I'm okay with this deal and we're going to stop shooting?
No, I mean, look, everyone's got to, make a decision on that point, but I'm just basing this on, a lot of years of operational work and having observed and watched and dealt with some of his people over the years. I wouldn't trust Putin as far as I could toss him out a window. And I think what he's doing right now is what you would logically do in his position. He feels as if he's got the upper hand here. He's already, he also agrees with Trump. Kyiv doesn't have any cards to play. And so in that position, while your military is actually making headway, they're taking back all that territory in Kursk that the Ukrainians took in a surprise offensive back in August. And in that offensive, they took about 530 square miles. They're down to now holding only about 60 square miles or less. So the Russians are taking back that turf. So there goes that leverage point from Kyiv's perspective. And the Russians are also making headway, albeit slowly, but they're making progress in the eastern side of Ukraine, taking additional land, pushing that front line back further into Ukraine. So when you're in that position, you have to ask yourself from a pragmatic standpoint, why would he sit down at the negotiating table right now? Why not just stall and say, well, yeah, I like the idea. In theory, there's some things we have to work out. Meanwhile, his forces are kicking butt on the ground, and he's just thinking, I'm just going to see how much turf I can take.
What is the deal going to be? You're right. So let's listen carefully to this soundbite. Again, it's an interpreter, but listen to the words that he's actually saying. And Mike might be right in this. That this might be a little stall tactic. Take a listen.
We agree with the propositions to stop hostilities, but we proceed from the fact that such ceasefire should be such that would lead to a permanent peace.
Yeah, so you can stop shooting for now, but then the devil is in the details of what they're going to how they're going to divvy up whatever contested area of Ukraine. About right?
Well, I don't think there's going to be any divvying going on from Putin's perspective. It's just going to be, I'm taking what I currently have plus anything that I collect on the ground between now and should he decide to actually have a seat at the negotiating table and perhaps pursue a ceasefire or an agreement. But he's been pretty consistent and clear.
For a while, they weren't arresting anyone. They just let this go on for a while. And of course, Tom Homan is in New York to kind of try and clean things up. What do you think of this pro-Hamas push? What's his name? Free Mohammed Khalil?
Mohammed Khalil. Yeah.
Insanity. Why can't we get over this? I thought we have Trump and you can get rid of all these knuckleheads.
Well, as we've seen, the White House will try to take certain measures, which you would look at and go, yeah, that makes sense. That's common sense. And then the judiciary is pushing back on a number of these things. And so, but you're right. Look, you look at this and you think, okay, at what point do we learn a lesson here that if you don't have consequences for bad behavior, right? Whether we're talking about the anti-Semitic protests on campus and the destruction of property, and or whether we're talking about the Tesla takedown, where those individuals are claiming it's a peaceful protest, and yet you've got numerous cases of arson carrying explosives, throwing Molotov cocktails, damaging property, endangering people's well-being. At what point do we learn that you have to have consequences?
It's amazing, Mike. It's amazing. It's amazing. You know, the leftists who, you know, Summer of Love 2020, peaceful protest, buildings are on fire, you know, bullets are flying, people died. Burn a Tesla dealership, peaceful protest, but go outside an abortion clinic as a Christian and say, we have another idea for you, and you get arrested. You get cuffed and get thrown out of that. It's incredible. Mike, I got to go. Appreciate your time. We'll get you back again soon. Again, everyone.
I hope so.
President's Daily Brief, PDB podcasts are very, very successful. Mike, good to have you, brother.
Take care, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. We got the one, the only, the man, Steve Bannon, Stephen K. Bannon. I'll ask him what the K stands for. I'm going to guess Keith when we come back. Is Stephen K. Bannon. How you doing, brother? Hey, Mad Dog. First of all, I don't see a shot. He couldn't hear me, number one. Number two, do we have that soundbite of from this morning? No. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, probably. Stephen K. Bannon, Bolling to Stephen K. Bannon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, pirate, gangster.
Okay.
Pirate
okay, OG. Oh, you're the Don. You're the Don of the OG, MAGA OG crew.
Ingredients added to many pet foods could be impacting your dog's lifespan. That's why I formulated Nature's Blend.
Now you can feed your dog wholesome cuts of real meat, vegetables, and fruit with no artificial preservatives or fillers. Unlike fresh food, Nature's Blend is gently freeze-dried. This means extraordinary health benefits, but with zero prep, zero fridge, and zero mess.
I just feed her right out of the bag. She's obsessed with this food. Thank you, Dr. Marty.
And for a limited time, get up to 54% off with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV.
Did you know you could remodel your kitchen faster and for a lot less than at the big box stores? At Cabinets to Go, customize your dream kitchen with custom quality cabinets, countertops, and more. And enjoy a high quality, affordable kitchen makeover that is sure to wow. Visit one of our showrooms nationwide and get your dream kitchen today for as low as $149 a month at cabinetstogo.com.
All righty, there you go. West Palm Beach, Florida. We have a camera on the roof of this building somewhere, but I'm not sure those look like familiar from the last couple of days. That's all right, though. All right, let's bring in my good friend, let's call him, I would call him the Don of the MAGA movement, the OG Don of the MAGA movement, Stephen K. Bannon. I speculated that the K stands for Keith. Am I right or wrong, Mr. Bannon?
King.
Okay.
I'm kidding, Kevin. I'm just a Mick. I'm just a dumb Mick. Stephen Kevin Bannon, named after saints, sir.
Stephen Kevin Bannon. Okay, so Stephen Keith Bannon, Kevin. Stephen Kevin Bannon, sorry. This happened yesterday. Watch.
I'm not sure that saying that Steve Bannon calls balls and strikes is the right way.
I think at the risk of Elon Musk tweeting about me, because apparently he likes when I say the word balls on TV, I will say that balls and strikes, when you're talking about Steve Bannon, when he calls balls and strikes, he calls strikes balls and balls strikes. I mean, that's what he does. He says the opposite of what is happening, particularly when you're talking about, I don't know, the 2020 election. So let's just be clear on that. Having said that, We are so siloed in how we consume information that the fact that Gavin Newsom is so aggressively going, he's not just going over the line, he's going like to the other side of the spectrum in order to make a point. That's what he's doing.
Mr. Bannon, I believe I counted 7 or 8 times Dana Bash said balls, and I think she likes to say ball. I think she just likes to say balls. Your thoughts?
You are so cruel. They've lost it. I mean, CNN, you know this. You're a pro. You've been doing this for 20 or 30 years. They're just drifting. I have no earthly idea even what CNN does anymore, because we really break down MSNBC because they're on top of the MAGA movement, on top of President Trump, with fake news nonstop because they get it from the New York Times. But CNN is just kind of wandering around. I mean, you don't even know. I mean, look at that conversation. It doesn't even make sense.
It made no sense. Like I said, it made so much so that it wasn't making any sense. I think she just liked to repeat policy. I know what the genesis of it was when Elon put a young kid, in charge of some of the technical aspects of Doge. His handle online was big balls, and just hearing Dana Bash say big balls was worth, its price of admission in itself. And so Elon was busting her. Not her, her cojones.
Okay. Bowling. You've been in West Palm Beach. You've been in West Palm Beach a week too long. We're gonna get you back to either New York or D.C. It's the sun.
No, what's going on in New York?
You're too piratey. That's too piratey. That's too piratey.
Here's what's going on in New York earlier today. Roll that. Yeah, the Trump Tower, Steve. How many times have you and I been in that beautiful lobby there? And these lunatic pro-Palestinian protesters take it over. No coincidence that Homan is in New York, trying to clean the place up. Yeah, shocking, no?
Well, here's the thing, Eric, by the way, the president who's given so much to this country, they put him in jail, assassination attempts, bankrupting. Now his building has to be raided. I think most of those, or a lot of the instigators, are Jewish students that are for the destruction of Israel, it looks like. The Free Palestine movement, or whatever it's called. And look at President Trump. Look at right there.
The left thinks everything's a peaceful protest. That's a peaceful protest. The other, Summer of Love in 2020, George Floyd burning down buildings, gunshots everywhere, people dying. Mostly peaceful protests. Yeah. But as I pointed out last segment, if you go outside an abortion clinic with a Bible and you say, hey, there's another option, they lock you up. The left will say that's a threat to democracy and people's freedoms. Steve, I'm going to give it to you a little.
No,
go ahead. Go for it.
No, Will Goodman. We had Will Goodman on the show that was in Danbury prison with me. He's got to face trial again tomorrow in New Jersey from a state judge. For saying the rosary outside of an abortion clinic. So that's where we stand as a country, Eric Bolling.
Yes, sir. Stephen, take it away, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, brother. Getting to be the highlight of my day is doing the Passover from Eric Bolling myself. One time I get to laugh. There's so much serious news out there. War, peace, and prosperity. We're going to go to the White House. I'm going to play a cold open. We're going to start the war room today. We have Natalie Winters, the White House correspondent, is at the White House. Julie Kelly's joining us, breaking news from the courts. Let's go ahead and let her rip.
Do all congressional Democrats believe that President Trump is pushing for a civil war?
I can't speak for everyone. I can, and certainly Ms. Waters made her position clear.
Do you, ma'am?
Do I think he's, let me say this. It is very clear that what Donald Trump is doing right now is violently impacting the communities that we represent. Whether that ultimately ends in a civil war remains to be seen.
This is saying, let's just give up even more of our constitutional authority because, hey, he can do a lot worse later on. And so to me, that's capitulating to someone who's already showing that he's reckless and willing to do a lot of destruction. We are in a perverse, bizarro land where we're having to decide between letting Donald Trump wreck the government this way or wreck the government that way. So at what point do you say I'm going to stand and fight?
If you guys block this, it's going to be a shutdown, and you essentially could be playing with fire here.
Well, it'll be a Republican shutdown.
but not all Democrats are on that same page. Senator John Fetterman, for one, has been the most outspoken in supporting the Republican plan because he wants to avoid a government shutdown. Democrats are concerned that that plan cuts domestic spending, does not rein in Donald Trump, does not rein in Elon Musk, but with the House out of town, the Senate, Republicans in charge of the House and the Senate, that may be their only choice to avoid a government shutdown, which is why we are hearing that there are a growing number of Senate Democrats willing to allow that House plan to become law and avert a shutdown by tomorrow night. Brianna?
Manu, just 24 hours ago at this time, you and I were talking about what Chuck Schumer had announced and saying that they were going to try to push back against this plan. You seem to have new reporting that suggests that may no longer be the case.
Yeah, look, Senator Chuck Schumer said on the Senate floor that they would block. They didn't have votes to block this Republican plan to keep the government open through September, and that the Democrats would essentially stand together here. But there has been a change in appetite among some Democratic members who they've been having these closed-door debates for days, including today, a very lengthy closed-door meeting. And talking to members after that meeting, it is clear that there is a growing belief that there will be enough Democrats ultimately at the end of the day to vote to advance this Republican plan and essentially allow it to become law and avert a government shutdown. Now, these things are still fluid, and this strategy continues to develop, and there's still some time before tomorrow night, but there is this belief that ultimately at least 8 Democrats, that's what it would take to break a Democratic filibuster, because they need 60 votes to advance. Now, the Democrats have been grappling with the dilemma that they are facing, is either accept a Republican plan that cuts domestic spending, does not rein in Donald Trump, or block that plan, and that could lead to a prolonged government shutdown. That dilemma is a question that I posed about that dilemma to Senator Dick Blumenthal just moments after that closed-door lunch. Did Republicans ultimately outmaneuver you guys here, leaving you in a situation where it's a lose-lose situation?
Republicans have the majority in the House. They have the majority in the Senate. They have the White House. I think at the end of a couple of years, maybe it's just a matter of months, American people are going to conclude absolute power, autocracy, and tyranny, not such a great idea. So it's not a question of being outmaneuvered. It's what Donald Trump is doing to the country.
Chuck Schumer, Casey, is planning on going to the Senate floor sometime this afternoon, potentially indicating whether, in fact, there is a way out, whether, in fact, there might be enough Democrats to move ahead here. So potentially a shutdown could be averted. But as you know, they could still stumble into one in just a matter of hours here.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Thursday, 13 March, year of our Lord, 2025. Welcome to the late afternoon, early evening show of the War Room. Right there, Chuck Schumer, as soon as he goes to the Senate floor to let us know his thinking about the Schumer shutdown, we will go live to that. But we're going to go to the White House now with our White House correspondent, Natalie Winters. Natalie, you've seen the back and forth all day. They look like yesterday they were going to accommodate, then overnight. And I count Mark Warner, Tim Kaine, and Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly of Arizona. And Mark Kelly is a guy they're talking about running for president in 2028. You got Warner, you got Kaine, who are considered moderates in that radical party. But others have come out and said they're not there yet. So I don't know where they're going to get these 8 votes. I know Gillibrand, I've heard, has been screaming behind closed doors that they got to go along with this. Obviously, the senators from Connecticut, maybe Schumer, they could be a couple of short. What are you hearing, Natalie Winters?
Well, Steve, I think it's important to focus on where we're seeing the most movement going on right now. The White House obviously came out very staunchly in support of the CR. They've been, I would say, considerably less quiet in terms of the Senate working its way through the process, right? We obviously have Schumer making all those sound bites like you just played. But I think what's really important to pay attention to right now is where the sort of grassroots Democrats are on this, right? If you look in the same way that our audience knows just how we hound our senators, our representatives, you're seeing the same exact thing go down now with the Democrat grassroots. For example, right, these groups that were organizing those town halls to oppose DOJ, groups like Indivisible, they have shepherded all their resources, they have rallied the troops, and they are descending not just upon Washington, but into these districts to really go, or I guess these states, to go after these senators to make sure that they hold the line and basically force Trump into a shutdown. That is sort of the line, the angle of attack that they're taking. I want to put the pictures up on screen for you, Steve, though. Groups like Indivisible, particularly the shutdown, they're framing it through the lens of Musk or us. And they are now they are reimbursing protesters, whether it's at town halls or wherever it may be, hundreds of dollars for daring to come out and criticize the Trump administration and just basically support these senators who are not going to potentially join that, gang of 8 and help avert a government shutdown. So I think it's really interesting to watch on that side of the football where the left-wing activists are trying to push these Democratic senators into not averting a shutdown. But in terms of what's coming out from the White House, they haven't, I would say, been in terms of putting out, the emails with the talking points. Obviously, Caroline Leavitt in the press briefing discussed the CR, but they have not been as forceful with the messaging with the Senate component of the stopgap funding. But the left-wing activists are certainly very forceful in their messaging on it.
Have you seen any additional activity? Normally, when we would have these the threat of the shutdowns, you have Russ Vote, you have OMB. They're working through what we call waterfalls, how cash comes in, who are the people that have to be there, the emergency people, who are the necessary people. They're doing triage and really going through it. And I know DOJ is obviously doing their own independent assessment of folks and kind of this audit. But do you get any activity? There's any late night work on the White House, or they seem to be fairly complacent about this?
Well, look, Secretary Besson obviously did that brief press gaggle this morning. I think he's been doing a lot more media. Even Secretary Navarro yesterday took some questions, was doing a lot of interviews about more broadly the economic stuff, but that's, of course, inextricably linked to the shutdown stuff. To be honest, I think that it's sort of an interesting messaging framing because we've been hearing, from Democrats for weeks that you can't shut down the government, all the people that DOJ is trying to fire, that they're so essential to the very fabric of this country, right? They've been weaponizing judges across the country to ensure that President Trump's efforts to dismantle the federal government can't actually be executed. But now you're essentially, I think, hearing the inverse of that, right? They're now essentially arguing for a shutdown in the name of politics. So I think that the White House, for my estimations, is just sort of letting them duke out the messaging front, in part because it's kind of contrary to everything that they've been pushing against DOJ. But they've also been, frankly, Steve, doing a really horrific job on messaging. Not just, I think we saw the first kind of examples of this during the response to President Trump's joint session address, but these members of the Senate are just putting out copy and paste verbatim the same responses, right? And maybe the USAID money dried up, but their efforts to push back are really insufficient. So I think maybe the White House does not feel as if they have to push back with such brute force.
Natalie, we stay right there. I got a lot more to go through. Today, the White House was an action center on many fronts. We're going to go back to the White House, but big breaking news. Let's go. We have a clip to introduce Julie Kelly. As I told you this morning, the federal judiciary insurrection against President Trump continues, but they're ratcheting up the scale of this. Pretty breathtaking. Let's go ahead and play it.
Breaking news, a federal judge is ordering the Trump administration to reinstate the jobs of thousands of probationary employees that they fired just last month. Now, this preliminary injunction applies to the Departments of Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, Defense, Energy, Interior, and Treasury. CNN's Paula Reed is on this story. Paula, That's a lot.
That is a lot. This happened just moments ago, and the judge, a Clinton appointee, said he was making this ruling because he believes the Office of Personnel Management unlawfully directed the agencies earlier this year to lay off probationary employees. As you may remember, this hearing was supposed to feature testimony from the director of the Office of Personnel Management. He would have faced probably pretty tough questions from lawyers representing unions, but the Justice Department decided not to make him available and also withdrew a declaration that he made last week about these firings. And let me tell you, Dana, we've been listening to this hearing in San Francisco. The judge was not pleased. He said, quote, "You were afraid to have this person testify because you know cross-examination will reveal the truth. I tend to doubt that you're telling me the truth." The judge went on to say, "You're not helping me get at the truth. You're giving me press releases, sham documents," referring to documents submitted by the Justice Department to the courts. Now, going forward, the judge has ordered that another senior advisor at the Office of Personnel Management be deposed. So these lawyers are going to have the opportunity to question that senior advisor. The judge said he wants someone from this agency to go under oath and to finally tell the truth about exactly what happened with these firings. Now, the judge also anticipated that this ruling today will likely be appealed. He said, if you want to do that, quote, God bless you. But he says that he wants to get to the bottom of exactly what happened with these firings. So in the next 2 weeks, we expect the senior leader at OPM could be deposed, depending on what happens with the appeal.
Yeah, this is a very, very big development. And real quick, before I let you go, given that, do we have any sense of whether or not this ruling today could impact what we were just talking about earlier in the show, which is that there are more layoffs expected very soon?
I think it would depend what specifically those layoffs are targeting. Here we're talking about probationary employees at specific agencies, but I'm sure that lawyers at the White House, at the Justice Department, they are going to look at what the judge said today, decide if they want to appeal, because again, another thing they don't want is an unfavorable ruling on appeal. So I'm sure this is going to factor into their considerations, but we know, Dana, they have lost several cases, they have won many cases, and they continue to try to call the size of the federal government through any means necessary.
Yeah, they sure do. Thank you so much.
Stunning development, not just the scale of this decision, but also basically the dressing down the judge gave of the government. We got about 30 seconds. Julie, tell me what you think. We're going to hold you through the break. This was pretty stunning, ma'am.
It really is. And this is just an escalation of what we see federal judges doing in other jurisdictions, particularly Washington, D.C., actively undermining the president's authority and his policy agenda to significantly reduce the federal workforce. And you have labor unions and other Democratic interest groups who are suing the president and his administration. And these federal judges, including this 80-year-old Clinton-appointed judge in San Francisco, only too happy to go along with this.
Absolutely stunning. We're going to hold Julie Kelly. A lot more to go to on the federal judiciary insurrection. I told you it's an insurrection. They're challenging directly the power of the President of the United States to make executive decisions as chief executive officer of the United States government. Thought that was in the Constitution. Short commercial break. Going to go back to Julie Kelly. Natalie Winters is at the White House. We have a lot more to go through. Philip Patrick is going to join us. Markets in global turmoil today. All of it next in the War Room.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So, Julie Kelly, let me connect some dots here. And as soon as we got the clip from the last, we're trying to hone down the clip to what the judge said in open court and dressing down President Trump's government. But I want to be brutally frank. And I'm going to go back to your report of yesterday. Judge Chutkan, Judge Beryl Howell, Judge Reyes, this new judge today. We remember those names, Julie, for the last 3 or 4 years of your reporting on the January 6th protesters, of these judges and others that are nothing more than a group of radical neo-Marxists that throw out the rule of law and send so many people to jail forever. And now they are calling President Trump's, really their government, illegitimate, illegal insurrectionists. I mean, the contempt that comes through is so obvious. Julie Kelly, your thoughts?
It is really ironic for me, Steve, to listen to judges like Amy Berman Jackson or Tanya Chutkan or Beryl Howell in particular, who is the chief judge of the D.C. District Court for 7 years and did everything in her power in that unchecked, unaccountable position to destroy Donald Trump. After listening to them for 4 years, accuse a 6-year-old woman who walked into a government building on a Wednesday afternoon of attempting, as being a threat to democracy, attempting to overturn the results of an election, and now to see all of them systematically trying to thwart, and successfully so far, as the Supreme Court sits on its hands, to thwart Donald Trump and the will of the American people who elected him. And to your point, Steve, they are brazenly demonstrating their contempt for Donald Trump, his entire administration, Elon Musk, all of Donald Trump's voters in these courtrooms. I'm going to be posting, I just purchased the transcript of Beryl Howell's hearing yesterday about the lawsuit against Perkins Coie. The things that she said, again, were so out of bounds, saying that President Trump has a bee in his bonnet about Trump-Russia collusion. Well, of course he does. And she should have recused herself from presiding over this lawsuit because she was the chief judge that oversaw all of the activity of special counsel Robert Mueller, handled all of the grand jury proceedings in that matter. She is totally conflicted and invested in protecting Perkins Coie because of what she has previously done. So I'm going to be posting snippets of that transcript tonight, and people can see for themselves what she has said. And of course, Judge Chutkan also poised to force Citibank to turn over money that is being held there, $20 billion in climate funds that the Biden administration sheltered at Citibank just a few days before the election, and is doling out to these 8 climate nonprofits, hundreds of millions every few weeks. And EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin wants to claw that money back. She is poised to enter a temporary restraining order, Steve, preventing Lee Zeldin from getting our money back from Citibank. Every day gets worse and worse.
I just want to know that the $2 billion in foreign aid held up, the money laundering operation at Citicorp, money now with a group that had like $100,000 in the bank, they're claiming $6.9 billion were hung up there. Perkins Coie going on offense on these law firms were held up there. The President of the United States trying to downsize the government, which is his purview, downsize there. Every different aspect of what we told people was going to be the rollout of the deconstruction of the administrative state and really setting things right and balancing out the weaponization of government against people. Every single aspect of it has been stopped by some local federal judge that's given an injunction for the entire nation. Am I wrong in that? We've essentially hit a wall here, and they're going to continue on. I mean, this is what they're rallying around as their way to stop Trump, ma'am.
That is exactly what's happening, which is why it is particularly shameful that the Supreme Court did not take advantage of that opportunity in the $2 billion U.S. aid case before Judge Ali, and finally, or at least begin to put a stop to what these district court judges are doing. I mean, you had Beryl Howell yesterday basically saying, priming the ground to completely overturn President Trump's executive order against Perkins Coie, saying that they have constitutional rights that Donald Trump is violating. You have another federal judge who is mocking Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. This is Judge Anna Reyes, the first LGBTQ judge on the D.C. District Court, mocking his service and forcing lawyers for the government to defend his position, which is the president's position, on not allowing transgender troops in the military. You have another judge, one of our favorite, Royce Lamberth, a Reagan appointee, who has also disabled the president's executive order about transgenders in federal prison. He has vacated, in his own way, reversed that executive order, forcing the government to continue hormone therapies and transitional surgeries for federal inmates, people who have committed crimes who are in federal prisons, against the president's wishes. Again, the same judges who insisted a 4-hour protest at the Capitol building 4.5 years ago almost represented a dire threat, one of the worst days in democracy, an attempt to overturn an election. And you have these same judges doing the exact thing that they accused J6ers of, which of course they never could do, but these judges are actually succeeding in doing so.
Before you go, Julie, I just want to play, we've cut this, I just want to play the CNN report on the outrageousness and the lack of respect and dignity and discernment by a federal judge today in San Francisco about President Trump, his Justice Department, and his entire government. Let's go ahead and play it.
And let me tell you, Dana, we've been listening to this hearing in San Francisco. The judge was not pleased. He said, quote, "You were afraid to have this person testify because you know cross-examination will reveal the truth. I tend to doubt that you're telling me the truth." The judge went on to say, "You're not helping me get at the truth. You're giving me press releases, sham documents," referring to documents submitted by the Justice Department to the courts. Now, going forward, the judge has ordered that another senior advisor at the Office of Personnel Management be deposed. So these lawyers are going to have the opportunity to question that senior advisor. The judge said he wants someone from this agency to go under oath and to finally tell the truth about exactly what happened with these firings. Now, the judge also anticipated that this ruling today will likely be appealed. He said, if you want to do that, quote, God bless you. But he says that he wants to get to the bottom of exactly what happened with these firings. So in the next 2 weeks, we expect the senior leader at OPM could be deposed, depending on what happens with the appeal.
Okay, I want this audience just to have the perspective here. Julie Kelly sat in courtrooms for years, got transcripts, looked at charges. Did any federal judge ever sit there knowing what and ever address the Justice Department with all the lies that we know they told, everything they did to break the rule of law, and actually not just weaponization, these prosecutors were criminals. They were flat out criminals of what they did to these men and women. And to sit there and they praise them, and right there, that judge called Trump's Justice Department, the DOJ, and the lawyers liars, right? And we'll put you under oath. I think you're lying to me. I want to get to the truth. This is outrageous. He ought to be turfed out. Impeachment should go on this guy right away. Did you ever see in the 4 years with all the lies and misrepresentation of the Justice Department and Matthew Graves, did you ever see a thing? But the first time Trump gets into court in San Francisco, they call his Justice Department a bunch of liars, ma'am?
Well, I know you will be shocked to hear me say no. I never heard any judge on the D.C. District or Appellate Court accuse the DOJ of lying, which they did flagrantly, in addition to violating all other rules of criminal procedure, including producing discovery, withholding evidence, including Brady material, refusing to turn over to the court, and in some instances, openly misleading the court We saw this in the classified documents case before Judge Aileen Cannon. Jay Bratt and the prosecutors on Jack Smith's team frequently misleading Judge Cannon about the status of that case. So no, I never heard that. But here's something I want to point out. This judge in San Francisco that you're referring to, this 80-year-old Clinton judge, this lawsuit is not even a month old, and he's already trying to put it on trial before him, holding an evidentiary hearing, pulling in a top White House official to face, he called cross-examination. He actually said that today. This is something that would happen years from now. Allowing attorneys representing government labor unions to cross-examine in open court a White House official who clearly would have at least some privilege arguments. And it sounds like he is setting the stage for this, which of course then the White House will try to invoke executive privilege. This judge, of course, will ignore that. But he is setting up a mini trial of the president's personnel policies executed under the executive branch and allowing interest groups and government labor unions to cross-examine a top appointee of President Trump. It is stunning. Every day really gets more and more surreal what's happening in these courtrooms.
Julie, you know you're going to get the transcript. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, your Substack and social media, ma'am.
Substack Declassified with Julie Kelly. Julie Kelly, I'm on X, Julie_Kelly 2. I will be posting parts of Beryl Howell's really mind-blowing comments in court yesterday about the president and Perkins Coie.
Unbelievable. Julie Kelly, thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
We're going to go to the Treasury Department. Matt Boyle is finishing up an interview with Scott Bessent in a day of global market turmoil. Philip Patrick's going to join me for a pregame. We're also going to go back to the White House, our own Natalie Winters. War and peace and prosperity. Today in the War Room. Back in a moment.
Look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. Now, I'm not going to bend at all on aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to. In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. I have many friends in Canada. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, the great. Hey, how good is Wayne Gretzky? He's the great one. But we have, I know many people from Canada that are good friends of mine. But, the United States can't subsidize a country for $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything that they give. We do it because we want to be helpful. But it comes a point when you just can't do that. You have to run your own country. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state. Keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states. Maybe our greatest state. But why should we subsidize another country for $200 billion? It costs us $200 billion a year. And again, we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We have more than they do. We don't need anything. We don't need their cars. I'd much rather make the cars here. And there's not a thing that we need. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them. And we have to do this. I'm sorry. We have to do this, yes.
If you watch Real America's Voice early in the day, it was nothing short of extraordinary. I told the team this morning that when I saw that the NATO Secretary General was coming, it wasn't on as really a bilateral. It wasn't on as really a big meeting. He was coming by, and he was going to have lunch. And I said, President Trump's going to open up, have a press avail. Now, I didn't know it was going to be an hour and 20 minutes. With President Trump taking every question under the sun on Putin, on war, and all of it. We're going to get to all this because we're quite jammed this afternoon. So much big news is breaking and so much analysis needs to be done. But on this, President Trump, I am not going to bend on tariffs. Said this over and over again. We've asked Philip Patrick to join us. We're going to go to the Treasury Department in a little while. Matt Boyle of Breitbart is finishing up an interview with the Secretary of Treasury. As soon as that's over, Boyle's going to give us an update what's going on. Philip Patrick, now more than ever, I think people need that kind of steady hand of Scott Bessent. That's why we've been a big advocate that Scott ought to be out there more. We love Howard Lutnick. Howard's a little more, I would say, on the sell side of the house. Scott's a little more of the steady Eddie capital markets guy. I think right now we need capital markets guy because the markets are in turmoil and we need a steady hand. Your thoughts, Philip Patrick?
Yeah, I would agree vehemently with that. And I think Scott Bessent has an incredible track record and they understand this guy knows what he's doing. But, you know, we are seeing a ton of volatility and I think the markets are responding. I think Monday was the worst day on Wall Street in about 3 years. And we're on track for the worst week since the beginning of the pandemic panic. So things are rough. And I think what's happening at the moment is investors are realizing that the Trump administration are going to keep pushing their agenda, even if growth takes a hit and even if markets tumble, right? And I think there was a belief before that the second the markets would come down, Trump would reverse policy. But why people are so surprised is beyond me. I mean, they've been signaling this for a long time. J.D. Vance said back last fall that things were going to get tough. Bessent has said, and correctly so, we need to go through a period of detox, right? Markets have become addicted to cheap money, to government spending for way too long. And I think what we're starting to see is what started out as sort of growth repricing from a rich starting point is now morphing into a growth scare driven by tariffs, Doge, retail selling, and all the volatility. But the important thing is I think they're realizing that there is a willingness of the administration to embrace shorter term pain. We've been saying it, but now we're doing it. And I think ultimately this is what Wall Street got wrong. They thought that Trump was another rich guy who was another markets guy just like them. And they were wrong, right? What's becoming clear is this administration is about America's interests first. It's about America's security first, America's economy first. This is a populist nationalist movement, not another corporate kleptocracy. Trump didn't run on a platform making Jeff Bezos rich, right? For once, we have a leader who's willing to put the American family first, who's willing to look beyond the sort of day to day and think about long-term thinking, because it's only long-term thinking, cold-blooded rationality and a willingness to accept pain that's going to get us out of this mess. And that's what people have to understand. We have to bear with these guys. We've been building a bubble for a long, long, long time, and we're going to have to let some air out of that bubble if we're going to rebuild. And that's what's happening.
The price of gold hit an all-time record today at $29.82. That's $2,982. Gold just surpassed. We're just been notified. Gold just surpassed $3,000. Talk about that for a second. We're not here because we started with you guys. I think it was $1,100. It's not about that. In fact, I want you to explain to people, gold's never had a run like this. And gold, you normally invest in gold as a hedge against times of financial turbulence. It's never really been an instrument to outperform the equities market. So people are, and by the way, thank you, producer. I mean, if we're here, Philip, in a historic moment when gold has just reached $3,000 per ounce. Talk to us about this moment. And it's not simply the price, it's the convergence of factors. And we've told people, and I've on this show, this is why we did the End of the Dollar Empire. This is why we want people to be smart, to teach you capital markets, to teach you macroeconomics. The forces that are driving this are the same things that are driving these central banks, and they're not going to go away for many, many years. Philip Patrick, your thoughts?
You're absolutely correct. Listen, gold now is becoming a growth asset. Prices are surging. We're up over 12% this year, over 35% last year. And historically, as you said, you didn't buy gold. I was an investment banker, right? In the early 2000s, if you talked to me about buying gold, I would have laughed, right? Because the reality is we had 100, I don't, but it's true. We had 100 years of data. The 20th century showed us that the S&P crushed gold. It is a very different story this century, very different. Gold has outperformed capital markets significantly, and it's all to do with the things we're talking about. It's about debt. It's about deficit spending. Look at the problems in front of us, and it's very clear why gold is surging and why gold is going to continue to surge. I think around the world, gold today has become the safe haven trade. It's not the dollar anymore, right? It's not U.S. government debt anymore, right? Look at what's happening there. The picture is not good, and I think overall what we're seeing.
Hang on. I want to turn right now to Ray Dalio yesterday, exactly, because traditionally the flight to quality, they'd immediately go into U.S. government bonds. They're not. People are putting their money in gold, and there's a reason for that. We're going to turn to Ray Dalio now. Let's go ahead and play. This is yesterday on CNBC.
I think the first thing is the debt issue. We have a very severe supply-demand problem. So we think there's debt, and some people think, oh, we'll handle it because we've handled it so far. I don't think they understand the mechanics of debt. By the way, I've written the draft of a book that anybody can see on social media, on particularly LinkedIn, that goes through the mechanics of the debt. But there's a supply-demand problem, so that they have to sell a quantity of debt that the world is not going to want to buy. And that's a set of circumstances that is imminent. Okay, that's paramount importance. Then we're going to have to deal that the deficit must go from what will be projected now to be about 7.2% of GDP to about 3% of GDP. Otherwise, there will be a supply-demand problem. Okay, that's a big deal. You are going to see shocking developments in terms of how that's going to be dealt with. Things that may not have happened in our lifetimes, but things that have happened throughout history. So that's an immediate consideration.
Wait,
the interest rate.
What do you mean, austerity like that?
There are many. What do you do when you don't have an adequate supply-demand balance? There may be restructurings of debt. There may be exerting pressures on countries to own the debt, to buy the debt, political pressures on countries. There may be cutting the payments to some creditor countries off for political reasons and so on. So there may be monetizations of debt. If you look at history and see the repeating of what do countries do when they're in this kind of situation, there are lessons from history that repeat. And so just as we're seeing political and geopolitical shifts that seem unimaginable to a lot of people, to most people, if you just look at history, you'll see these things repeating over and over again. So you will be surprised, we will be surprised by some of the developments that will seem equally shocking as those developments that we've seen. So when I look at it, I think that these are of paramount importance. Then we're going to deal with the internal.
So, Philip Patrick, is Ray Dalio right there warning the American people that we could have a sovereign debt crisis when he talks about rescheduling payments, restructurings, a huge oversupply of government securities that have to be sold and also refinanced? Is this one of the reasons that the smart money's going, hey, maybe I can't put it in a government security. Maybe what I do is put it in gold, sir?
Yeah, when you say one of the reasons, I would say the biggest reason by far, and Dalio's absolutely correct. Of course, the guy's brilliant, but we're starting to see early signs of some of this. I think Scott Bessent touted, tying European security guarantees to a 50-year government bond at zero coupon, right? Talk about defaulting on some debt liabilities. We kind of did it when we sanctioned Russia, right? I think, sort of a broad debt default is unlikely, but it's getting concerning. I think I saw your commentary on this interview yesterday, and you said, this is how a bankrupt company would act. And you're right, but we're not a company, we're a nation, right? And we have options that companies don't. And in this situation, I think central banks are forced to choose, right? You either print a lot of money to devalue the debt, or you don't print money and you default on debt, right? But the reality is when you owe debt in your own currency, you never default. You always print and devalue, and that always ends the same way. First of all, it inflates the debt away, but the side effect is it destroys the purchasing power of currency. We've seen it time and time and time again throughout history, and I've said it before, but it's starting to happen already. Global demand for our debt is already waning. US dollars, central bank holdings, 30-year lows. Even in a climate where rates are going down, debt service payments are going up. These are early signs and they are bad signs. Ray Dalio says 3 years. Depending on what happens, could be sooner, could be longer, but we're going to have to pay the piper at some point.
Philip, can you hang on 1 second? I'm going to hold you through the break. Birch Gold, we've done to explain this to you. We've put together the End of the Dollar Empire. It's all free. The 6th free installment. Modern Monetary Theory, the idea that broke the world. Big believers in the worm that ideas have consequences. This is one that had quite negative consequences. One of the reasons we're dealing with this fiasco is this belief, the buy-in from the lords of easy money in the political class. Short commercial break. We'll return with global capital markets next in the War Room.
Posse, hey, I can't be with you for the next few days, but that doesn't mean the specials go away. Remember, the promo code War Room is the most sought after promo code in the history of MyPillow. Here's another reason why. When you order $100 or more of MyPillow products today, use that promo code War Room and you're going to get 2 MyPillow bed pillows sent to you absolutely free. So go to the website or call 800-873-1062 and do all your shopping there. You from the crosses, 30% off. The 6-piece bath towels, $29.98. The kitchen towels on sale. The beds, they made in the USA beds and mattress toppers. Take advantage of this. Free shipping on your entire order with promo code War Room. I'll see you all soon. And remember, use that promo code War Room, 800-873-1062, or go to mypillow.com, promo code War Room. We'll see you soon.
Okay, Mike Lindell still under the gun on this throat surgery. Hopefully, he'll be back with us next week. Philip Patrick, and we'll have it tomorrow. I don't think we have time today. India, I think, has announced Modi's saying he's going to drop out of the BRICS. We'll have a full report on that tomorrow. But the purchasing power of the dollar, that's what people are concerned about. Central banks buying gold at record rates. I want to make sure people can get to you guys. If you go to your phone, Bannon. Text Bannon, Bannon, 989898. You get the ultimate guide to the purchase of gold in the era of Trump. That's used totally free. But, we do these relationships with sponsors, and we want people to have access to the senior level of the company, and that would be you at Birch Gold. And, of course, over the last 3 or 4 years, the feedback from the War Room Posse, our audience, is just, you guys are fantastic. I just want to make sure, particularly our new viewers and listeners and people on the podcast get access to you and your team, especially now. As we've told you, we're in a fourth turning. This is going to get quite turbulent going forward, and turbulence is not a bad thing if you know how to hedge. Where do they go, Philip?
Yeah, it's really simple. birchgold.com/Bannon, birchgold.com/Bannon, or as you said, Bannon to 989898. Get the information, immerse yourself. We've been doing this I've been doing this with you for about 3 years. And I think over that time period, we've built some credibility. We've been pretty spot on with what's going to happen, what's been happening. So look at the information, read, and go from there.
And you got to understand, there are people in the audience. You guys are gold. There are a lot of gold bugs out there. There are gold bugs at Birch Gold. But when I came out of Goldman Sachs, I had my own firm back in the in the 80s and the 90s. And Philip he's a recovering investment banker also. Gold just wasn't a thing, right? And now you look at this as a store of value. In a hedge, which it's always been, but you look at it, the bump in it is incredible. And part of that is these central banks. What we want you to do is understand the underpinnings of the converging forces that are coming together, and then you make your own decisions. Philip Patrick, honored to have you on here. Pretty good calls over the last 3 years, bro. Pretty good calls.
Thank you, Steve.
I think the best one was Navarro. We called stagflation back when it happened. Natalie Winters, we are going to go to the Treasury for an exclusive interview with Matt Boyle, who's with the Secretary of Treasury right now, interviewing him in the Secretary of Treasury, I believe, the office. We're going to go to Matt as soon as it's free. Natalie, there's so much I want to go through with Putin, but there is this thing on CISA that you're uncovering. Give me the update on that, because I want to make sure I get that in today. And given some other news, we might not be able to come back to the White House. What's your CISA report, ma'am?
Sure. Well, real quick, I'm standing here in that brief period where I wasn't on. I actually saw Kash Patel arrive at the White House. Unclear what he is doing. He waved at me, and you can certainly make sure that makes me a lot more popular with the press corps. But that aside, with what's going on at CISA, they've now shut down 2 key programs. One having to do with election integrity.
Hang on, stop. How many of those stiffs out there you've co-hosted with Cash dozens of times? How many of those stiffs at Pebble Beach can say that you've co-hosted with the FBI director, ma'am?
Well, and Navarro, right? It's basically all the War Room co-hosts, all the that's what Pebble Beach has become. But no, the CISA thing I think is important. I know we only have limited time. We can rehash this, but why it's important now is because the media is starting to become apoplectic over it. They've started mentioning it a lot more on MSNBC. A lot of the outlets are now doing long stories, the fear porn about how they're letting all these brilliant techies go and how, cybersecurity attacks, impending doom. Although I think the cybersecurity attacks have already happened because precisely why CISA and all the engineers over there have not been focused on securing this country against cyber attacks, but rather they've been focused on censoring Americans, weaponizing election infrastructure. So I think this is an important thread that they've just started to pick, but I just wanted to lay it down for the audience because you're going to see this expand, and Secretary of State Adrian Fontes has actually already started advocating it, and it's been propped up by Democracy Docket, that's Mark Elias's group, the idea of creating a sort of new CISA to help defend election administration across the country.
I tell you what, I'm going to let you go. We're going to have you back on tomorrow. I'm going to do all the Putin stuff with you that came from the White House today, tomorrow, because there's going to be more breaking news overnight on that. Natalie, until then, where do people go into your social media to track everything you're working on?
Natalie G. Winters on all platforms. Thank you for joining. Sorry, I was talking about co-host. Thank you for having me.
Hey, don't take that co-host thing too. Natalie Winters, thanks. Great job, ma'am. Appreciate you. Okay, that's Natalie Winters. When we return, we're gonna go to the Treasury Department. The indefatigable Matt Boyle, the national political editor for Breitbart, the only living human being that was mentored in order by Tucker Carlson, Andrew Breitbart, and Stephen K. Bannon, and lived to tell about it. He's now at the Treasury Department. Just did a exclusive interview with Scott Bessent on a day of global turmoil in the capital markets. Part of that reason, Putin came back with a couple of three ideas that he would only do the ceasefire. Let's say this: he took a maximalist position. It's one of the reasons capital markets are roiled today. Gold, a few minutes ago, the historic $3,000 mark was breached. We're going to break it all down, leave you with the right stuff. Get ready for the second hour in the late afternoon, early evening edition of the War Room. Be right back.